Hello everyone, this is Jay here from JAAD Productions. This is just a quick little video showing off the terrain I've custom built. I've been sitting on it forever. I've actually, took me longer to complete than I should have. It's actually very simple and easy. So I'll quickly just walk you through the steps of how I made this terrain. First things first, you start with material and things you need to make it. The foam that I selected to make the terrain out of is a insulation type foam. You can typically find it in the insulation sections and plastering sections, and it's just solid insulation foam, like the solid bricks. It's typically used more in the northern hemisphere than it is in the southern hemisphere, but you can find it at Bunnings in the insulation sections nonetheless, off to the side with plaster sheets and other kinds of sheets. You start with that. It's available in very big, long sheets at about 3-inch thickness and 5-inch thickness. I selected the 3-inch thickness for this build simply because the terrain I wanted to make wasn't that going to be huge, and the idea being 3 inches kind of the perfect for particularly Warhammer and Age of Sigmar. Moving up 3 inches and up 3 inches makes it nice and easy for measuring. So I did that, and I figured I'd just create layers by stacking on top. The other thing I grabbed was some plaster putty for plastering this foam at the end, because the easiest way to paint this terrain when you're done, shaping and all that, is to spray it. And unfortunately, if you try to spray foam, any kind of foam, most foams, particularly this insulation foam, it will melt. So it will be a waste of time if you do that. So you grab your plaster as well. And then you're going to need some sandpaper, you're going to need some cutting tools, and you're going to need, of course, paint and time. So the first thing I did was come up with my design, and I drew it onto the foam, which was easy enough, did all my measurements out. Then I used some power saws and power jigsaw to cut out all the shapes just into their rough implements, and then from there I spent time sanding them down into smoother rock surfaces. Now, there's two ways to approach this. You can either hack them up as is to create that rock sort of surface, or you can round them off with smooth and sanding them, which I highly recommend you wear a mask while you are sanding it. Do not breathe in the particulates of the foam. I made that mistake and was coughing for a week. You do that, and then now you can either get the rocky texture through the plaster and how you apply that. It just requires a bit of fun working, or you can do it, of course, as I said, by hacking it up with a knife. But once you have your shapes cut out and then you've refined the rock surface as to what you want, whether you want to go for smoother rocks or more jagged rocks, that kind of thing, then we can start gluing them. I glued them together at that point with the sections that needed to be glued together. You can just use standard PVA glue. It's fine. You can find it at your generic hardware shop or even your generic craft shop. Just standard PVA works well. Do this before you've plastered it. Once they've glued together, now you can start plastering it. I found it was nice and easy just to grab the spatula and some spoons and just slather on there. And now you want to be very, very thick when you do that. You need it to be very thick because it dries, and if it chips away, your foam's exposed and you can't spray it. So go very, very thick on your plaster. I think I used like half a tub on this. And then you let it dry. Now you got to leave it to dry for at least 24 hours. In my experience, I ended up, because I had them down in my underground garage where it was quite cold and it was wintry and they weren't getting a lot of sun, it did take them closer to 2 to 3 days to dry. But after you've got them dry, you can take them up and paint them. Now you do have the option of actually plastering the bottom of each of the terrain pieces. I decided not to take that route simply because I knew I wasn't going to be spraying that or putting them upside down. They were designed to go a specific way. designed the columns to just sit there, the hills to just sit there. Some of the more rocky ones, I actually did, the ones that are designed to sit on top of other ones, I did actually plaster all sides of that, top and bottom, all of it. And then from there, it's pretty easy. You just wait for it to dry, and then you wait for a nice sunny day. I got some generic spray can paints from Bunnings Warehouse. The ones typically used for outside plastics, metals, woods, plaster, all that. It is quite toxic, so I do recommend a mask with those particular paints if you use them. Otherwise, standard sort of hobby paint sprays will do. You can even use the pressure sprayer. God, mind blank on the best tool, the airbrush. You can even use the airbrush. But it gives you the same effect, really quick, really fast. Took me all of, I want to say 10 minutes, plus a further 15 drying time. I decided I'd go all black on these ones, because I wanted to create quite dark looking rocks. And then to lighten them up a bit, I actually used a white that I had on hand, and did the zenithal method, where you hold your white can directly above, and you hold it some distance above, and you just spray down very gently, and you let it mist over the terrain itself. Gives a nice little highlight to it, almost like there's a light filtering down to the surface, because I was thinking very much cave-like interior rocks. And then from there, I let it dry, 15 minutes, as per the standard. Then I grabbed a paintbrush and some acrylic paints, just some very cheap ones, a brown, and I just covered gaps and got in there and added some more brown weathering, and ta-da, that's how they come out. And then you can see sort of their scales, what they look like. They were very much line of sight blocking. Even the smallish ones at 3 inches are very good line of sight blockers, and you're not. But as you stack pieces on top of each other, it starts to become very line of sight blocking. The more flat surfaces you leave, the more room there is for moving models in and around it. The downside of using the plaster the way I did, I failed to calculate for some of the flow of the plaster. So some of the areas that I had designed for models to sit on, models don't quite sit on. It's very wobbly models, so I won't be using that ever again. I'll know next time that for rock platforms that I want the models to sit on, they need to be wider than I anticipate. But that is that, and you can see, and this is before I rebased my Skaven, and you can see some of my most recently painted Seraphon in these pictures, just as some size samples. When I actually made these, I used Space Marines as my size samples. Not Primaris Space Marines, old style Space Marines, but it still works in terms of size and everything. Good enough to hide things behind, move things through. It's very good line of sight blocking. It's very good area of effect terrain. It's a bit of wobbly model in some areas, but that's what happens when you have cool terrain. It's very easy to make on a budget. It cost me no less than about $30, I want to say. $12 for the sheet. I'm just using the one sheet of plaster. You can get the bigger 5-inch thick sheet for $24. I only $12 on that. About $5 on the plaster. I already had the PVA glue. I already had the spray paints, but they cost about $6 each. So another $12 there, $24, $25. Yep. And then the acrylic paints, they were about $3 each. So yeah, just under $30. Nice. It's quick. It's simple. It looks nice on a nice mat. So there you go. And that's the terrain I've been working on. It took me much longer to do because I was busy with exams, and it took me forever to actually get the motivation to actually put this video out. But there they are. I look forward to using them and playing with them. They're my first terrain build attempt in quite some years, and it was a lot of getting back into practice. But there you go, and I'm going to be building a lot more terrain as well in the future. So look forward to further videos. I've got some Age of Sigmar themed ones going on, a Skaven town, and some Dwarven Fire Slayer underground hold buildings. that I'm hoping I'll start one of those in the coming new year. Yeah, probably the Skaver one, since it's already taken me a long time, and it's mostly going to be wood based rather than foam based. All right. This has been Jay from JAAD Productions with a quick little thing on how I built some cheap, easy rock type terrain. And you can also, if you're willing to spend a little bit extra money, because it's quite expensive. Now, I decided not to do it in the end, but I do actually have the materials left over to do it for my future builds, is you can actually take fake plants and you can cut them up and you can stick them stick them inside while you're into the foam and plaster around their base, or you can cut them apart and super glue them onto the terrain after you have plastered and painted everything. So, yep, just a quick little tidbit on that. So once again, this is Jay from JAAD Productions, signing off.